I used to feel like every day was a hustle. Waking up with my mind already going 100 miles per hour, trying to figure out how to make rent, how to make sure I'm doing everything in my power for my acting career, how to make sure I'm leveling up myself physically and I'm taking care of my body because at the time I couldn't afford to go to the doctor. Just figuring out how to make any and everything work. But now I have hobbies, I do things for fun. I can take a walk through the park or the mall and forget why I even came in. And for me, that is a level of freedom that I absolutely love to have.
Your things are as powerful. Few things are as powerful as
What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another Pep Talk Wednesday. I am Tyra, the creative, your host and virtual cheerleader for the day, delivering a midweek pick me up that you have been craving. Get ready for some encouraging words and a dose of inspiration to brighten your day. Ready? Okay. When I first moved out to California in 2018, y'all, I was deep in survival mode. I would say the majority of my 20s, yeah, because I'm only 30 now, but the majority of my 20s were definitely full of hustling and just being in survival mode, just hustling to survive. And I know for me, a lot of that comes from the fact that I decided to move out to Los Angeles in the first place. But even before I moved out to Los Angeles in 2018, I was what, 22, 23. Even before that, I was living on the East Coast and I was still out there surviving. I was in culinary school. I was working at Red Lobster. I was slanging cakes on the side. And it was always hustle, hustle, hustle. And for me, I was very, very deep into hustle culture. And I remember when I would be like, once I moved out to LA, when I would even think about this when I lived in Jersey, but I would just be like walking or at work one day and thinking, wow, I wonder what it'll be like when I'm 25. I wonder what my life will look like when I'm 28. Dang, I'm so tired of doing all of this stuff, of all of this work. I wonder when I'll be able to just have fun. And I know a lot of the thoughts around that didn't necessarily come from me saying, okay, Tyra, I know that you're in survival mode now, but eventually we're going to have to, live to live. And y'all know on this podcast, I talk a lot about making sure that you're living a full life because the career will be there. And the one thing that will not be there is your mental health if you continue to just survive and not really care about how you're impacting your body. But I remember it was still 2018. I had just moved out to LA and I was talking to my friend Alexis, and she asked me, I don't remember how the conversation actually went, but she was like, okay, hey, do you want to go out to eat with me? And I was like, girl, I got food at the house. Not in any type of way. I wasn't like upset or, anything. That was just the first thought because I did have food at the house. I wasn't in a space where I felt like I could go out to eat, subconsciously. I didn't say to her, girl, I don't have no money. I was like, oh, I already have food at the house because I made sure that I had everything I needed to survive. So anything out of that basic survival, it wasn't a priority for Tyra in 2018. And she just said, eventually, she would ask me this like all the time. I would go every now and then, but she was like, girl, you got to make time to just go out to eat. You got to make time to just do something for fun. And when she said that, I was like, girl, I'm in LA. Like, I'm focused, And I think that's okay for a certain amount of time. But I was still in a spot where I was working brand ambassador jobs. So I was freelance. I was 1099. So I was just doing contract work, working 2 to 3 days for a certain amount of money. And I had to make my dollars stretch. You guys also know at the time I was living with this guy who wasn't contributing to our space at the time. So I was really taking care of two adult human beings. Mind you, he was also like 4 years older than me. And at the time, I was just doing it because I knew that I could. And because of that situation that I was in and all of that, I didn't always have the space to rest or even think about bettering myself in other ways or just, diving into my hobbies. And I think that's why I am so gung ho about them now because in my early 20s, I wasn't in a space where I felt I had space to dive into those things. I just had to make it with what I had at the time. So I'm just here to say it is more than okay to outgrow survival mode. I really think my 30s are about reclaiming my ease and reclaiming that lost. And I'm putting lost in quotations because I am so grateful with everything that I've accomplished since I've been living in LA, but that lost time that I spent working nonstop. I think something that I was grappling with early on when I started to actually live a full life is feeling lazy, feeling like I had to earn rest instead of it being a priority. And now that I'm 30, I'm still learning just how much rest my body actually needs because, y'all, let me tell you, it needs a lot more than it did in my 20s. And that can be a little frustrating for me, but I think my body is finally resting more because I feel safe. I feel secure. I am not in a toxic relationship. I'm not taking care of a grown man. I am fully putting myself first. I'm making sure that Tyra has what she needs in this time in her life. And overall, my nervous system is just so much more calm. And I'm doing more normal people things. And I'm finding joy in those things, like sitting on my balcony in the morning. And by the way, y'all, I have a hummingbird living on my balcony right now. And I just be going out there to water my plants in the morning and make sure I don't disturb it, but I'm finding joy in those things. I'm also doing actual grocery shopping these days. That's not something that I would have normally done in my early 20s. I'm having more slow Saturdays. I typically just go to the gym on Saturday mornings and I come home and I let the day take me. If the day takes me to just laying on this couch all day, baby, I'm laying on this couch all day. I also take walks. I tell you guys all the time that I take walks with my friend Alexis. She now has a in-person job, so we can't walk every day. So now I just go for walks on my own, very leisurely walks. I walk slow. Okay, I will even like walk through stores with no urgency. I am doing normal people things. I remember I was talking, this was actually last week. I was talking to a friend and I was telling him, I was like, this is what happened. So I invited him over for dinner. This is a friend, y'all. Friend. I'm serious, friend. And he was like, dang, I haven't done this in a while. And I was like, what? Normal people stuff? And he was like, you know what? Yeah, that's exactly how I would put it. I haven't done normal people things. And I feel like that's the best way to put it because when you live in a place like LA, hustle culture is so ingrained into everything that you do. You don't feel like a normal person. And it's not to say that normal people things are like less than or anything. I honestly strive to be a normal person but have an acting career, a normal person but be a content creator. And all that means is that I am making time for the things that, as we've talked about before, constitute a full life. Your career is not your whole life. And I also want to touch on the fact that thriving doesn't mean it's perfect. When you're thriving, like my 30s are all for thriving. You know how people say 30, flirty, and thriving? My 30s being my thriving time means that I am present. I am taking inventory of the things that Tyra wants to do, the things that Tyra is feeling, the things that Tyra needs to work on, all of that stuff. Because I do have things that I want to work on in life. I do have things that I want to learn how to do, all of that. And in my 20s, I didn't have room for it. But now that I'm in my 30s and I'm not in, and I don't want to equate my 30s to being out of survival mode. That's just how it worked for me. You could be out of survival mode at 18, 20, it doesn't matter, 40, it doesn't matter. But for me, since it was my 30s, that's really why I keep saying this, or my late 20s. But now that I'm in a space of thriving and not just surviving, I have the space to breathe. I have space to laugh. I have the space to feel. And I'm so excited about all of that. So, especially when I was reflecting in Thailand, when I was turning 30, I started to just get so overwhelmed with just joy and pride because I really worked my ass off in my 20s. And I'm so grateful to that Tyra for setting 30-year-old Tyra up for success in the way that I did. But I want to invite y'all to reflect on a question that I have been reflecting on myself. What is something that you do now that your younger you couldn't even imagine having the time or capacity for? For me, that was taking a trip like Thailand. We literally just went to Thailand for 12 days for our birthdays, me and my best friend, and she invited her family, and I invited one of my line sisters, and we just had an amazing time. That's something that my younger self couldn't even imagine having the capacity for. And I'm also in a space where I am now being way more soft, and even as I'm talking about this right now, it's just so crazy how being in survival mode and taking care of everything can have a very masculine appeal to it. And now that I am thriving at 30 years old, I feel more soft. I feel like there is so much more softness in me, and that I really believe softness is a sign that you've made it through the hard times. As you guys know, we have a challenge for every single Pep Talk Wednesday episode. So, this week's challenge, and I really hope y'all be doing these challenges because they're so simple, but I think they're so rewarding. So, if you do this challenge, send me an email. I know a few of you guys have been emailing me with your results to your challenge for each Pep Talk, and I absolutely love it. And I would love to share them on a future episode. So, go ahead and share those with me. But today's challenge, or this week's challenge for this pep talk, is like the reflection question I just asked you was something that you couldn't even imagine your younger self having time or capacity for. When you come up with one of those things, one of the easier things, indulge in that thing this week. That could be taking a long walk. That could be going to the movies, whether by yourself or with somebody else. That could be sitting on your couch all day and doing absolutely nothing and not feeling guilty about it. Resting. That could be going to the beach. It could be a lot of different things. And I think it's so important to make sure that we are making time for stillness. I think being able to be still is a luxury. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when we are in survival mode, our nervous system is in disarray. So even if we are sitting still, we aren't in stillness because our body is still very full of worry, doubt, or whatever it may be full of when we're in survival mode. But I think when you are in a thriving stage in your life, you're able to truly be still and give yourself that stillness. And it can show up in a lot of different ways. Like I said, beach, laying on your couch all day, going to the movies by yourself, going out to eat by yourself, going to a restaurant, those types of things. So I want you to indulge in that this week. And it may be hard. Like you might be like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could do that yet." Do it. Give yourself 15 minutes. Give yourself an hour. Give yourself 2 hours. I promise you, your body will thank you. One of the biggest goals of mine has always been to live a full life. I didn't necessarily know how that would come about, but I knew deep down that being in survival mode would not get me to where I wanted to go. Or maybe I should say, being in survival mode for the rest of my life would not get me to where I wanted to go. Because, like I said, when you're in survival mode, your nervous system is not still. Your nervous system is so uneasy. And sometimes we need to be in that fight or flight or freeze situation, but it's not a state that we're meant to live in 24/7. So think about what are some signs that show that you're not in survival mode anymore. Is it going to bed on time, having a home cooked meal, indulging in your hobbies, making time to laugh, to feel? What does that look like for you to not be in survival mode? And I don't want you to think that survival mode means, or a sign of it is anything monetary. We get it, being in survival mode so you can actually survive and put a um, roof over your head. But outside of that, inside of you and your day to day life, what does getting out of survival mode look like? Yes, having more money, we get that. Yes, having a place to live, we get that. But outside of that, how will you know when you've made it out of survival mode? How will you know when you are no longer surviving and you're thriving and being present in the moment? I'm going to say this again and I'm going to say it loud. It is okay. And it is actually one of the most important things for you to do to outgrow survival mode. And that can look a lot of different ways for all of us, but it's so important that we do it. That is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this Pep Talk Wednesday episode. Once again, when you do the challenge of the week, please send me an email. Let me know how it works out for you, what thing you decide to do that your younger self wouldn't even have the capacity to even fathom yourself doing. I can't wait to hear from you guys. If you are watching the video, make sure you give this video a like and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It will help us out a lot and we'll be able to start doing way more video episodes if you do. But if you're listening on your favorite listening platform, go ahead and leave us a rating and a review. And I will see you guys next week for another episode, another full length episode on Monday. This is Affirmations for Black Girls.